So today is 18th of April, and as always, we are going to begin with our Hindu analysis. So we've shortlisted some important topics from today's newspaper, and then we'll discuss those. Okay, so let's start with the first topic of today. That is the 131st Constitutional Amendment Bill. It has been defeated in the Constitution. So united opposition has actually defeated this bill. This is a very big news that is coming in because the 131st Constitutional Amendment Bill, it was actually making the rounds. It was in controversy because the women's reservation was actually linked to delimitation. The women's reservation was linked to delimitation. The government wanted to expedite women's reservation. We know that the Women's Reservation Act came in 2023 for 33% reservation to be given to women in Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. Now, this can happen only when the census is completed, when the delimitation is done. Only after that the reservation can be implemented. So the government wanted to expedite it. It did not want for the current census to complete and then we'll have delimitation. It wanted that we do the delimitation based on the last available data, that was 2011 census. Right, so this was linked to delimitation, but the southern states, they were not happy with it. They were not happy because the delimitation exercise in itself is going to benefit the states, that is largely going to benefit the states which have more population, because it is directly linked to the population of a state. The constituencies will be redrawn based on the population. Representation in Lok Sabha will be given based on the population of that state. Now, because the southern states, they have controlled their population with good governance policies, that's why they did not want to be punished for that, sort of punished for that. And they had been raising their voice, they had been raising this opposition. And then in a united, like the opposition stood united on this case, and this bill has been defeated. Now, this bill has been defeated. After this defeat, the government has actually withdrawn the other two legislations, the allied legislations also. That was the delimitation bill and the union territories laws. So that has also been taken back by the government. Now we need to understand that what this issue is all about. However, we have discussed delimitation issue in detail. You can check that out on our channel. But largely the issue is about representation in the Lok Sabha. More representation is going to mean more political influence, more influence on policy making. And the southern states feel that they are going to be penalized for controlling their population. And that is why, according to the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, the seats in Lok Sabha were frozen according to the 1971 census. Because no proper framework could be designed, right now delimitation is going to depend solely on population, and the southern states have been demanding that you add more criteria, some sort of a different criteria also into it, like better governance, good governance, that has been taken care of, the policy compliance, all these things that have been done by the southern states that do not just rely on population, do add some more criteria also. Now, because no proper framework could have been there, that is why this was frozen according to the 1971 census. And now in the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act, it said that till 2026 this is going to remain as is, and after 2026 we'll have the delimitation exercise. So this was the entire debate, and the delimitation bill was also introduced to basically carry on the delimitation exercise, but not on the existing census, like the census that is ongoing. It has just started on 1st of April 2026, so it is going to take 1 year. So by 2027, under ideal circumstances, we'll be done with the census. After that, delimitation will happen. After that, reservation will be implemented. So the 2029 Lok Sabha elections, implementing reservation in that is going to be dicey. That's why the government wanted to expedite it. But the opposition has been saying that no, we cannot really afford to do that. We first want to come to an appropriate framework. Only after that we'll do a delimitation exercise. So let's not do the delimitation exercise based on 2011 census. So for this, a majority was required. What kind of a majority? Special majority, right? A special majority was required because this is a constitutional amendment bill. We are talking about amending the constitution. Article 82 particularly Article 82 comes into reference over here, which talks about all the delimitation exercise that has to be done after the conducting of census. So it's about Lok Sabha seats, that the Lok Sabha seats are going to be decided on the delimitation exercise, which will be done after the census. And Article 170 also, which talks about the seats in the state legislative assemblies. So it is basically altering the federal structure of our of India. That's why it was a constitutional amendment bill, and a constitutional amendment bill requires a special majority to be passed. Special majority was not attained. Somewhere around 352 votes were required, and there were only some 298 votes in favor. 50% of the total strength plus 2/3 of the members present and voting, correct? So special majority could not be attained. That is why this bill was defeated. So this is actually a big happening. Now, what is going to happen after this? What does this defeat mean? So there are a couple of things that can follow. First of all, maybe a modified bill can be reintroduced. Correct. So discussions can happen in the Lok Sabha, and maybe a modified bill can be reintroduced, taking into consideration all the all the points that have been raised by the opposition. That can happen, but this certainly means that the women's reservation is likely to be delayed. Women's reservation is likely to be delayed, because the opposition is saying that you do it right now, implement women's reservation right now based on the existing strength of Lok Sabha that we have, 543 members. Do not wait for increasing the strength of the Lok Sabha. Do not wait for a new delimitation exercise to happen. Implement it right now. But the government has been saying that when we are going to change the structure, when delimitation is actually going to change the structure, let's wait for the final structure to be built up, and post that we'll do the reservation. So in this tussle, this is most likely to happen. The women's reservation is likely to get delayed, and a modified bill can be introduced. And for now, like as of now, Lok Sabha seats, they are likely to follow the same census, 1971 census, as was agreed upon in the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, and then later on it was also extended to 2026 by the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act. This is also likely to happen. Now, all of this will become clear once the government clears its stance, that is it going to come up with a modified version of the bill, what is either going to be some different proposals, what kind of a decision will be taken is for us to watch. But this is what's happening at the moment. This was a very crucial bill which has been defeated, and because of this, the other two allied legislations have also been withdrawn by the government. Okay. Now let's move on to the second news for today, which is that Iran has declared the Strait of Hormuz to be open after the Lebanon truce, and Trump says that blockade will continue. Now we know that Strait of Hormuz has been in the news every day because of this conflict that is ongoing between US and Israel and Iran. So time and again, Iran once closes Strait of Hormuz, then it opens Strait of Hormuz, then there is blockade by the US. Then very recently, we also saw a conflict in Lebanon. So Hezbollah and Israel, they got in a conflict. Then a 10-day ceasefire has been announced in Lebanon, and Iran and US, they were already on a 14-day ceasefire. However, the first stage of peace talks that took place in Islamabad, that could not reach any conclusion. So the second stage is likely to follow. So all this keeps on happening, and that's why Strait of Hormuz is always in news. Now, in a recent update, Iran has said that it is going to open Strait of Hormuz. Earlier, it had threatened that it will close Strait of Hormuz, it will also close Red Sea, and now there are reports that it is going to open Strait of Hormuz. So President Trump has tweeted, and he has said that Iran has agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz. And not just that, Iran has also said that in going forward, Strait of Hormuz is not going to be used as a leverage in any of the world conflicts. Like, it will never close Strait of Hormuz again. This is what Iran has said, that it will never close Strait of Hormuz again, because this strait is actually a very major global energy corridor, right? 20% of the world's energy transport happens through this strait. So Iran has said that going forward also it will never close the Strait of Hormuz, and it will never be used as a leverage in any of the world's conflicts. But Trump has again said that the blockade is going to continue. Right now there is a blockade on all the ships that are coming in and going out of Iranian ports. So it is saying that this blockade is going to continue, and it is going to continue for the remainder of the ceasefire between Iran and US. And whatever whatever comes out of the second round of peace talks will actually decide the future of this complete area. But right now what's happening is that Trump has said that Iran, with the help of US, has actually removed all the sea mines that were placed in this strait. So in accordance with UN clause also, which says that countries of all the ships of all the countries, they can actually use such international passages freely. So in accordance with everything, Iran has agreed to open Strait of Hormuz, and without any conditions at the moment. And if we look at the statement that has been given in, so it says that in line with the ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of ceasefire on the coordinated route as already announced by Ports and Maritime Organization of Iran. So this was written by the Foreign Minister of Iran, that the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain open. And right now, because the ceasefire has been has been reached in Lebanon also. So these are some, this is some instability that is going on in the entire region, and it is actually going to continue for at least until proper peace talks are concluded. No just happening of peace talks, but peace talks also need to be concluded. So until these things are finalized, all such things are going to keep coming up daily. Okay. So moving on to the next important update, it says that India will not host COP33. It has now been officially confirmed by the government that we are not going to host COP33 that was scheduled for 2028, right? So it was declared by India that we are going to host COP33 in 2028. In fact, last year we actually built a dedicated cell also for that, for carrying out all the logistical and operational requirements, because in order to host such a global scale event, you have to take care of the logistics very appropriately. So dedicated cell was also created, but after that something happened that India actually decided to back out. India has been saying that it reviewed its commitments for 2028 and it decided that it is not going to host such an event. Now there are speculations, and India has actually been saying this also, that we are one of the few G20 countries who have actually lived up to our side of the Paris Agreement bargain. Like whatever needs to be done, whatever was required to be done, taking care of reduction in emissions, everything, the targets that we have been doing that. We have a green agenda, we have been following that. But what is being seen is that the developed nations are not really keeping their end of the bargain. They are not really working on this funding, providing funding or technological support to the developing countries. And in India also, in countries like within the country also, we see fossil lobbyists. So these are basically the big companies that are dealing in fossil fuels, and they do not really want, reductions to happen in fossil fuel, because that is going to hamper their profit, right? That is going to hamper their interests. So they have huge influence on the government also. They try that the government does not really come up with such policies that is going to affect them negatively. And these are influential people, these are big companies, influential companies. They try to do these things. So these are fossil lobbyists, and it has been seen that their impact or their influence is also increasing. However, the government has been saying that our major reason is that we have reviewed our commitments for 2028, and we felt that the time is not right that we should be hosting such an event. And it is also believed that because these developing nations like India feel that because the developed nations are not living up to their side of the bargain of the Paris Agreement, we should not be really putting in this amount of an effort. That's why. But it's a huge it's a huge step that we wanted to conduct such a global event, host such a global event, and then after that we are not going to do so. So if we do not do it, the only contender right now that we have is South Africa. So hosting actually, I'm sorry, South Korea. South Korea. So hosting this actually, it keeps on rotating between the 5 regional groups, and with India actually withdrawing its candidacy, we only have South Korea as a potential candidate over here to host COP33 in 2028, right? So right now we have COP31 this year, Turkey plus Australia hosting this. Then we have COP32 next year, Ethiopia, and COP33 most likely will go to South Korea. So I told you that India has been saying that we are one of the few G20 countries that have actually lived up to our Paris agreements. We take our green commitments very seriously and we do it. And very recently, like in March itself, we had submitted our updated NDCs, nationally determined contributions, right? And it said that we are committed to source 60% of our installed electricity capacity from non-fossil sources like renewable sources. We will source 60% of our installed capacity from those sources by 2035. Then we will reduce by 47% the intensity of the emissions per unit GDP, which is the GDP emission intensity. GDP emission intensity will be reduced by 47%. Now, what is this? This is actually, it calculates how much CO2 or how much polluting, how much pollution basically are we generating when we generate or when we create per unit output, per unit of economic output. Whenever we create, how polluting is that? How much pollution is that 1 unit of output, 1 unit of economic output creating? How much CO2 is it contributing to the environment? So that is our emissions intensity. So our emission intensity definitely should be low if we want to become a non-polluting economy, a green economy. Our emissions intensity should be low, and that's why the target is that you reduce it by 47% of the current scenario. And then we also create an additional carbon sink of 3.5 to 4 billion tons of CO2 equivalent. We also want to create a carbon sink, okay, so that all that CO2 can be absorbed and we can become a carbon sink. So we have these good targets, NDCs that we have, that we've updated and sent in, and we're working towards that. And the government time and again has been saying that we are very focused towards achieving our targets, and we have been achieving our targets. In fact, some of the targets have also been achieved before time. So we have been achieving our targets, our green targets, and when we reviewed the commitments for 2028, we felt that right now we will not be proceeding with our candidacy to host COP33. Okay, so this is the news. And then we have the final news for today, which is PNGRB nears concluding of bids for 4 LPG pipelines. Okay, so now what's happening? This is actually going to bring in a major shift in the transportation of LPG. Now, before we understand what's happening, let's first see what is PNGRB. What exactly is PNGRB? So PNGRB is the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. It's a statutory body. It was created by the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board Act of 2006. Okay, so such kind of questions can also be asked in the UPSC because the board is in news, so you can be asked questions around that board also. So this is a statutory body. It was created by this Act of 2006. And if we talk about the objectives, what is the role of this body? So to regulate pipelines, the pipelines, LPG pipelines that we have, it has to regulate that. Control gas distribution networks, the entire networks have to be controlled. Ensure fair competition, so that appropriate pricing for transport is also taken care of and no monopoly of companies happen in these cases. So it's a fair competition should be given. So it has to ensure fair competition also, and it approves infrastructure projects. Any new projects, any new infrastructure projects that come in, it approves that also. And right now, because of this function, it is in news. So it is all set to actually conclude the bid for 4 new LPG pipelines. So right now the LPG, when it's transported, it's hugely relied on road networks. So we rely on our road tankers, trucks and road networks, and then it reaches cylinders and then our homes. So we are hugely relying on our road networks, and that is something that we want to eliminate by 2030. We want to eliminate relying so much, like relying on the transportation of our bulk LPG by road transport, because for better efficiency, lower cost, safer reasons, safety concerns are also there, leakage could happen, anything can happen, and efficiency can also be disturbed. So that's why we want to reduce our dependency on road networks, and instead we want to build pipelines. We want to strengthen our pipeline network, right? And in an attempt to do this, we are all set to conclude the bid for 4 new pipelines. So this is in link with the objective of eliminating the dependency on our road transportation for transporting LPG by 2030, right? So when we talk about these 4 new pipelines, so they are from Telangana's Cherlapalli to Nagpur in Maharashtra, Maharashtra's Shikrapur to Hubli in Karnataka, and then Goa. So Maharashtra, Karnataka and Goa, and then Odisha's Paradeep to Chhattisgarh's Raipur, and Uttar Pradesh's Jhansi to Uttarakhand's Sitaraganj. So these are the 4 new proposed pipelines, and when this happens, we are going to we will be strengthening our pipeline network for transportation of LPG, and that is going to be safer, that is going to be cheaper, that is going to be more efficient, and that is going to enhance our energy security, right? So these were some important topics from today's newspaper. Whatever important has been left will be covered throughout the day on our channel, but these were some of the most talked about topics in today's newspaper. Now we'll look at the practice question for prelims. And before we do that, I'll very quickly tell you that we have this course for you, which is the Studio GS Foundation live online course. So this is a foundation course, which means you will cover your prelim syllabus and the main syllabus in 14 months. Okay, so you'll have 1250 plus hours of classes, printed class notes, live chat facility, everything, and a complete syllabus coverage in 14 months. You'll also have 3 mediums that you can choose from: Hindi, English and English. So the price for this is 34,999, but you can get an additional discount on this fee if you use a coupon code, which is SALONI, Saloni, all in capital letters only. So if you have any more queries, please call us at this number 87501 87501, and you can also download the Drishti Learning app and enroll into the course. Okay, now moving on, the 131st Constitutional Amendment Bill 2026 is mainly related to A. GST reforms, B. Women's reservation in Parliament and state assemblies, C. Creation of new states, or D. Judicial reforms. Choose the correct option. So it's a very straightforward question. This bill has been in news. What is this bill exactly related to? So thank you for watching. If you liked the discussion, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Drishti IAS English channel, and I'll see you in a new video. Thank you.